Drink it in, man. Touchdown, Detroit Lions! Cornbread! 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 Drink it in, man. Touchdown, Detroit Lions! Touchdown, Detroit Lions! Cornbread! Drink it in, drink it in, drink it in, man.
Detroit Koolaid. Detroit Koolaid drinkers. What's going on, everybody? It is Wednesday here on the Detroit Koolaid Cast. I'm your host, Derek Oakery. It's going to be a great show, as I often say. I got some news and notes off the top. We are in our Dollars Make Sense series, where I am going to talk about offensive line, defensive line, their contracts, and why those two areas are so important. We've got some news and notes. We are also going to have Logan Lamorandier from Sports Illustrated All Lions is going to be on the show, so drink it in, everybody.
Drink it in, man.
Side of cornbread.
Cornbread!
Make it a double.
Cornbread!
And like I say, there's lots to get into. So before I do the quick news and notes, if you guys didn't see, if you're Lion season ticket holder, they did put out an email so you can reserve your spot to go to training camp. It's either that July 30th day, which is a Saturday, I believe, or August 5th, which is a Friday. So those are the season ticket holder only ones. There's also plenty of other ones where anyone can come. There's also a family fan fest down at Ford Field on August 6th, which is Saturday. That gets rolling. They're going to have all types of events beforehand. The practice, I believe, is from around 11 to 1, so kind of in the middle of the day there. So if you want to check out the Lions live practice or down at training camp, definitely go do that. Always a good time and always get you fired up for football to come. So we don't mess around here on the show. Let's get right into it. So my quick news and notes are, you guys heard me last week kind of go on a half rant, half just praising Jameson Williams. Everybody out there, loves this player, but because the Lions took him and because he's not fully healthy, you're hearing people starting to hem and haw. What we have, Peter King showing the Lions a lot of love, but said Jameson Williams isn't going to be back till after Thanksgiving. I also then heard another podcast right after that talks all football, fantasy football, that said, he might not do much early in the preseason and camp, but they expected him to be ready that first game or the first couple games. Those ease him in slowly that way. So nobody really seems to know, but I went on a big rant saying this guy is such a ball player. He's going to be one of the fan favorites in Detroit. There was a video put out by the Detroit Lions saying who should have the greatest speed rating in Madden. And you heard people keep saying Leaf, Cleef Raymond, Cleef. And then there were some other people in there. My favorite was Ali McNeil, who thought he should be the fastest, big plump. But the reason they're saying all these other players is because they haven't seen J-Mo on the football field yet. Once they see that, there will be no question. And the reason why is because regardless of Madden maybe rating Jamar Chase as the 18th best wide receiver, they definitely got the speed ratings right, because I've been quoted on this show, I probably said it last week as well, that right after Tyreek Hill, it's Jameson Williams of the Detroit Lions when it comes to speed. So they gave him a 98 in speed, which was incredible. You know what also was incredible? Jameson Williams on Twitter. There was a photo that came out of him lifting weights, if you want to call it that. I think he had 25-pound dumbbells in one or both hands. He was on one of those balancing bubbles that they have. But the best part of this tweet and the photo was J-Mo doing this in designer jeans, sagging down to his knees in a cool t-shirt. I mean, this guy, I think the caption said Jameson or JMO never change, and I felt the same. I mean, this guy is so swaggy, so confident. He's just in the gym in like his full like hangout gear, still getting lifts in, still working on that leg, and just being cool as ever. So that was incredible. But is that more incredible than a tweet from himself? You guys can find him at Big, I don't know if it's Big SG JMO or if it's Big G JMO, but BIGSGJAMO. Go find him on Twitter, give him a follow. Look at this. JMO always has a fun, like, you know, emoji, icon, whatever you want to call after his name. Before he had some crazy stuff, which I didn't know what it was. Now he's got a karate outfit after his handle there. But this is what I want to tell you guys. This is why this guy is so incredible. Again, his tweet the day I'm recording here came out this morning about him in the 40-yard dash. Listen to this. This is as best I can do to read this incredible tweet from Jameson Williams of the Detroit Lions about his 40 time and his Madden rating. Get this. Nah, FR, which I believe is for real. Nah, FR dough. I ran 23 miles per hour hella times last year. Practice and game. Fully padded. Crying emoji face. Some them had to get naked run 40s for that. I just see people say IAN deserve the 98. I really deserve 100. Crying face emoji, 100. GM, which I think is good morning, and a big sunny day look. So, I mean, I didn't probably do it full justice, but that's my best narration of Jameson Williams on Twitter. This guy's funny. This guy's him. You know what I love so much about this? And I got so much more to get into. I'll keep this rolling, but Jameson Williams is such a real dude. And when Brad Holmes called him a dog, and you guys know how that's spelled on this podcast, D-A-W-G. That's what this guy is, man. He just knows he's good. He knows he's swaggy. He knows he's himself. And he doesn't apologize for it, which I love. So when this guy wears the 18 or the 1 or whatever number he's going to end up rocking long term here in Detroit, it's going to be absolutely electric when he hits the field. So JMO, keep tweeting. Keep sending out workout pictures of you that are hilarious. Keep telling people that instead of a 98, you should have been 100 in speed. And then when you get right, man, get on the field, run past everyone, and hope Jared Goff can get you the football. I can't wait to see it. Another quick news and notes. Dan freaking Campbell. You know this guy, right? I mean, I haven't played it in a while, so I might as well just hit it.
We're going to bite a kneecap off. We're going to smile at you. We're going to take your other kneecap. We're going to smile at you. And when we do, we're going to take another hunk out of you. We're going to be the last one standing. All right? That's going to be the mentality.
That's going to be the mentality. That's Dan freaking Campbell. And he was quoted here recently of saying he loves when people talk about SOL. He loves when people bring up that they think this is still the same old Lions. He said that it motivates them. They love it. They love the disrespect. They love people thinking that they're just the same old type of football team. I love that moxie and mentality for him to say it. He's not hiding from it. He's not acting like, oh, we don't read the papers. We're not worried about it. Dan Campbell has a swagger, a sense of motivation to him. And he said he thinks this team is like Rich Strike. And if you guys don't know what that is, that was one of the most incredible videos ever. Go pull it up on YouTube of Rich Strike winning the Kentucky Derby, where like this horse is in like last place with no time left in the race. I mean, heading down the back stretch. And then this thing just goes in warp speed and just flies past everyone. And Dan Campbell said he thinks he's got some players that are like Rich Strike. He thinks his team might be like Rich Strike. How about the Lions going from 3 Dubskis to coming down that home stretch and maybe getting in the playoffs, winning the division this year? I mean, that would be incredible, don't you think? Drink it in, everybody.
Drink it in, man.
That's for the people.
And the people consist of the millions.
Incredible. Hope you guys drinking that Detroit Kool-Aid like I try to serve up here on the show. Last thing before we get rolling, who's the top Lions fantasy player this year? I mean, we got T.J. Hockenson. We got DeAndre Swizzle, as I call him on the show, DeAndre Swift. We got the man I dubbed, and it's a great nickname because nobody has a nickname with 4 initials, basically. ARSB. Amon-Ra St. Brown. We've got DJ Chark, my boy, going to be running past people. Swaggy, 24 years old, running 4.3. He's going to be fun to watch. Or is it the guy I just talked about at Biggs G. J-Mo, Jameson Williams? Now, most of you, if you're fantasy savvy, are going to say, you got to throw J-Mo out because everyone's assuming he's going to miss ball games. What if he doesn't? What if he plays week 1? What if he plays week 2 or 3 and he's just absolutely that damn good as he was in college? I mean, I'd be drafting this guy in Dynasty all day if I had the opportunity. He's incredible long-term play. He's going to be a top talent at the wide receiver position on a fun offense to watch here in Detroit once they get rolling. And the conservative people would say it's T.J. Hockenson because he's been the pass catcher. He's been kind of the focal point here. He's a pretty good football player. We think he can be better. And maybe this is the year. Maybe it's not. But there's a lot of hype around Swizzle. Swift is the guy that you see out there being talked about of maybe having a breakout year, maybe blowing up here for the Detroit Lions. And then you got Amon-Ra, which I think is going to be a volume player, man. I think he's going to get a lot of short passes. I think he might find the end zone a lot. But I'm also tempering a hype because he's the easy play just because of what he did the end of last year. Is he really a dynamic, top third of the league fantasy type wide receiver? So if I had to roll the dice here in this first year, I mean, give me Swizzle this year in 2022. Give me Swift to have a really nice season and more catching, more receiving than you would think, more touchdowns than you would think, more big-time plays than you would think. A couple of the players said he is the fastest guy on the team, which, again, because they haven't seen J-Mo. But I'd probably put Swift there, and don't sell my boy Chark short. I think, if they get him the football, especially early in the year before J-Mo's up to full speed, Chark might have some really nice games. I'm talking a hundy and a touch, things like that. But give me Swizzle as the fantasy player for the Lions to have both now and the future, having a big breakout year and staying healthy, which I know everybody wants as well. So that's what I got off the top. Now, we should have Logan Lamorandier calling in probably in the next 5-10 minutes, whatever it may be. He's a busy man. He's got the multiple kids. He's got the big job. He's running around like crazy. But I love having Logan on talking Detroit Lions. You guys can find him at Sports Illustrated All Lions. He's got articles up. He's often on The Huge Show, which you guys can find on either podcast or stream. The radio show for The Huge Show. He usually jumps on there and talks Lions, and he's gracious enough to come on here. We get him about once a month or so, talking whatever we got going on here on the pod, things like that. So he's going to come on, but before he does that, I'll just dive into this Dollars Make Sense series, and then we'll get Logan's thoughts when he calls in the Detroit Koolaid Cast hotline, which he does, Joey from the Believe Podcast Network does, my buddy Chops does, and we got some great callers out there that do as well. Lots of you have been jumping on this. I'm talking about KP calling in, having a great take. I'm talking about Cornbread Jerry. I'm talking about Steve from Cal. I got to pull all these guys up because there's getting to be so many I forget about. I'm talking about Mike in the NYC. I'm talking about Keith from Puerto Rico. C. Mill from Wisco. I'm talking about Paul from Tampa. How about Tommy Lyon from NY, from the Big Apple there? How about, where's Frank Ribble when you need him? Frank, give us a call. It's 989-272-3484. I mean, we got John. Gosh, I'm just going down the list here, man. So many of you guys have either texted in or called or say you're going to call. August 2nd, me and Chops on the show, playing calls that have come in from the last time we had a pod, taking live calls, promoting the hotline, doing basically a call-in promotion type show to try to get you guys fired up to don't be afraid. Either call in, text, leave a voicemail, whatever you want to do. And I want those throughout the season. I want like calls and texts like mid-game, after the game, leading up to the game. I want predictions, all types of stuff. And if it's good enough, it's funny, we'll play it here on the podcast. So just want to throw that out there before we get rolling too. But Logan's going to call up that hotline, but we'll just dive in the offensive lineman. Go ahead and talk about Taylor Decker real quick. My first offensive lineman, the left tackle, usually the most important position. He's also the highest paid, 8.68% of the overall salary cap. His cap hit comes around $18.9 million. Obviously, the NFL is a little different, when you break it down. His base salary is around $14.7 million. He has a couple bonuses, both signing and workout bonus. Did a little restructure as well to give the Lions some room, so that's going to count as well. They're not moving on from Taylor Decker. It'd be a $24 million cap hit. There's actually a potential out in 2023, which I didn't know. So if something really bad happened or the Lions thought they could really get a more superior left tackle or younger cat, whatever it may be, there is an out after this season, making it a 3-year, $42.4 million deal in total with a $12.5 million dead cap if they were to move on from Taylor Decker. And Taylor Decker's 29 years old, so this contract runs through at 31, so not bad on both ends. He's not the youngest guy in the world, but he's not old. 29, 30, 31 seasons, he should be very good. He's very technical. He's very sound. I wouldn't call him a mauler. I wouldn't call him a great run blocker per se. But I've always liked Taylor Decker, and you guys know that if they listen to the show. So very happy to have him at the left tackle position, and that's kind of where his contract comes in. If they keep him, you're looking at 13.7 that next year, 12.9. As base salaries, and his cap hit basically stays both years around $17.5 million if they would keep him on the books. It's a hefty number, but you do pay the left tackle. That's something that's important to do for your football team, and I think he's been very good here for this football team. Now, when you go over the right tackle, this is the dog right here. This is the guy, and that's Penei Sewell, number 58. I mean, this guy, he's a mauler. He's got a great mentality. He's on a rookie contract. Got him luckily at 7th overall. Just looking at these numbers are crazy. Like in 2022, the guy's base salary is $825K. His cap hits like not even $5.5 million in total. He stays there for the next 2 years. He doesn't even get above $8 million throughout his rookie deal through 2024. Everybody, did I mention he's still 21 years old right now? Won't be 22 until basically when the season starts. I love everything about Penei Sewell. I was so happy they got Penei Sewell. I couldn't believe Penei Sewell fell to the Lions. And he's just going to be a great ball player. There's been people already talking about, and I totally agree with them, gold jacket type player in Penei Sewell. And you got to love that contract, as the NFL rookie contracts are incredible. Just have to mention that again. Let's go ahead and get the starters in here real quick. So Vaitai, is coming in at $8+ million, but we got to get Logan Lamer-Deer. That's calling him live, everybody. Let's just pick this up right now. Detroit Koolaid Cast, Okrie.
It's Logan. What's up, man?
Logan, what's going on, man? I just telling the people that you're calling in. I promoted the hotline. I went on a few rants and tangents like I often do. So I'm just getting into the offensive lineman, man. How you been?
Oh, been good. Been busy and ready for football season to start. This off season lull. It always it's a long wait.
No doubt. You need a Kool-Aid fill-up, maybe get you going?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Drink it in, man.
There you go. So, Logan, like what I've been doing, man, and it's a little bit late in the off season, but I wanted to get this in. It's kind of my Dollars Make Sense series. So I want to talk about contracts, player positions. So we've worked through quite a few. Today I'm doing trenches, man. Offensive line, defensive line. Now, I was going to bring this off the top, but I wanted to save it till you jumped on. You always hear like, oh, the trenches are the most important, you know, but I've been a proponent of saying in today's game, you got to have guys, I don't know, like Jamison Williams that are just fast and athletic and crazy talented. Are you a proponent of trenches first and foremost, or are you like this new game's about speed, talent, offensive, putting up points? Where do you fall on that before we get rolling on the Dollars Make Sense?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a mix. I still think that the trenches are vitally important, especially on the edge at both tackle and defensive end, because you need to have a pass rush to get to good quarterbacks, and you have to be able to protect your quarterback. I think a lot of it, though, you know, with having 5 offensive linemen and, you know, typically 4 defensive linemen, and then you include the rotation that there typically is as well on the defensive side of the ball, it's a lot more than just 4 guys. So I think you need to invest in those positions, but you can't just be paying top dollar at every single position. A lot of times you're going to have to backfill maybe players who leave with younger players or veterans who might not be getting paid all that much. So I think it's important, but at the same time, you can't just be spending a ton of money at those positions because, as you mentioned, wide receivers, you know, the skilled players are very valuable, and you can kind of do that the same way that you do with offensive line too, where you kind of have a mix of young talent that are on a cheap rookie contract with some bigger priced guys. But, you know, I think that's right down the middle, probably the line that I usually take.
Yeah, I was going to say perfect right off the bat. You kind of hit both sides, ended up right in the middle, which I love. It always makes me laugh. But like I'm a little bit with you on this one because I get it that it starts up front on both sides of the ball. I also love when you walk off the bus and you've got some beasts that just scare people. And I think the Lions have done it right. You know, they've paid their left tackle. They got a nasty physical guy on the right side. You know, they've drafted a few guys. They paid Frank Ragnow once he showed he was a beast. It's like this nice mix of paying but also drafting talent. And now they're doing that offensively where you got, you know, running backs and wideouts and, you know, tight end that might get paid here shortly. So I think they're doing a real nice mix when it comes to contracts in the trenches as well as with skill. And that's really what you need. You can't just pay wide receivers and quarterbacks $20, $50 million to think you're going to win and have nobody up front that can block, and you can't have a bunch of hogs that are great at blocking and you got no skilled talent. We saw that kind of last year with the Lions where they didn't have any game changers on the outside or able to do anything. So let's settle right in the middle, Logan, on that one, I guess.
Yeah, for the most part, I mean, really the offensive line, it's really important. I think you can actually go cheaper at other positions if you have a good enough offensive line. But I mean, if we're in a vacuum and we're talking about just spending on offense, the Lions are spending a lot of money on offense this year. You know, there's more than just being able to spend on offense too. If you're able to save elsewhere with finding veterans who can fill in and play, do a decent job at least. Where if you have elite players around them, I think it can really help make the entire team around them a lot better. And guys that need more help look a lot better than they really are if you have the right pieces up front in place.
Yeah, no, good point by you. I actually forgot that a couple weeks ago it came out the Lions are the most expensive offense, which shocked a lot of people, but it's because all that money in the offensive line as well as that quarterback that we're all hoping plays pretty well. I already talked about him. First week of Dollars Makes Sense, so hopefully he'll be able to throw some spirals and make plays. And that offensive line, we always said like, oh, if he just had time, if number 9 back there just had time, imagine what he could do. Well, we're hoping we really see it this year, and he has people to throw to as well. So Logan, how about this, man? You jumped on. I did my rant and raves in the beginning to entertain the people. How about we take a quick pause for our commercial break, get our great sponsors in here. And I left off at Hal Vaitai. I only talked about Decker and Sewell, so how about we'll just rumble through those starting guys up front, hit some of the backups, and then work our way to the D-line, man, the pass rushers, which I think should be excited about too here with the Lions.
Yeah, sounds good. I think Decker and Sewell are probably pretty straightforward, and Hal Vaitai, that's the big one.
I was going to say, that's the one I want to talk about or hear your thoughts on, because it's a big number. He played really well last year, but, me and you, I'm sure probably think there's good and bad with that player, and I'm not sure we'll end up on the middle on that one between me and you. But everybody, we'll take a quick pause. We'll come back and talk all about that. So glad to have Logan on and talk dollars that make sense here for the Lions on the Trenches edition. Everybody, we'll be right back.
This episode is brought to you by Michelob Ultra. Every time you kick back with Michelob Ultra, you score big. So why not reward yourself with a nice cold Ultra? As the official beer sponsor of the NBA, enjoy Michelob Ultra at your local Buffalo Wild Wings while rooting for your favorite team during the NBA playoffs. Or pick up Michelob Ultra at your local 7-Eleven store today. Enjoy responsibly. Copyright 2024 Anheuser-Busch Michelob Ultra Light Beer, St. Louis, Missouri.
All right, Kool-Aid drinkers, we got the man, the myth, the legend, the one and only Logan Lamorandier from Sports Illustrated All Lions. I already promoted his stuff before he came on. I said go check out those articles, see what he's up to, see what he's got going on Lions related. Definitely go give him that follow on Twitter. And he jumped on at a good time because I just started talking about the trenches, the O-line. I was glad to get his opinion on kind of, is it O-line, is it skill guys? We're talking about the big nasties on both sides of the football today and their contracts. So I was just about to get to Hal Vaitai at $8.7 million when it comes to a cap hit. This guy got a big deal from the former regime. He played like a turnstile out at right tackle. Now he's inside at right guard. Had a really nice year last year, and people are anointing this guy as some type of dominant, just stalwart there at the right guard position. But $8 million basically at a cap hit is no small number. Do you love this player where he's at? Do you think he could be a cap casualty sooner than later? Where you at with him?
Yeah, so I don't necessarily think he'll be a cap casualty this year. He's a starter first and foremost, but before they gave him that restructure, I thought he was definitely in that precarious situation where he could have been a cap casualty this year, just because they could have saved a lot of money and there weren't going to be a ton of dead cap on the books if they were to cut him this year. But I think they only save about $3 million if they were to cut him this year, and I think they probably need him. But you start looking into the future a little bit when his cap hit starts getting up around $11 million over the next two seasons. Each season's $11 million. I don't think he's quite there as a player, especially a couple years ago when the Lions first signed him. I don't think he's that type of player that should command that type of money, and it's nice having him because he is able to play some tackle. He can move outside, but he's not necessarily great at it. So to me, I think I'm not cutting him this year or anything like that, but next year you could save about $8 million by releasing him. So I think that would be the time to do it, because at the end of the day, yeah, he had an okay season last year. It's pretty good. It was a lot better than his first season in Detroit. I don't think the drop off from him to a lot of players who come in at a fraction of the cost is that great of a difference. And especially when you have Frank Ragnow and Sewell surrounding maybe a younger player or a veteran who's getting a lot less money, I don't think you would see a significant drop off in play. And I think it's one of the spots or one of the players on this roster who it would make sense, to try to find someone cheaper, because the Lions are paying a lot of money along that offensive line, and you kind of want to allocate your resources maybe elsewhere. I think Vaitai would be the guy to kind of eventually move on from. But I'm not saying it's this year, but honestly, it wouldn't be super surprising if maybe a guy like Tommy Kramer or Logan Stenberg came along and were playing well in camp and preseason, and they're like, hey, we can save some money by cutting Vaitai. But I don't think that will happen, but I wouldn't be necessarily shocked if it did.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the details while you're going through all that, and they had a potential out heading into the season. Like you said, they decided either not to use that could have got them out of this deal. The number this year at 8.8 is still a lot, but it does jump all the way up to over 11 in cap hit next year. And like you said, there would be that savings if they were to move on. He'll be 30 years old. So I guess where I stand on this is I'm never a huge proponent of, interior guards being like the end-all be-all. I feel if you look at most teams, they kind of are able to find them in all types of rounds of the draft and whatnot, and to pay them if they're not all pros, which obviously Hal Vaitai is not, and different things, it's kind of like I would find him other ways. So I'm with you. I guess like he's got a good mix. He seems to fit in well. They seem to like him. He's already paid basically. I'm rolling with him this year, but I'm definitely moving on by taking a guy in the 5th, 6th round next year or elevating one of these guys. I mean, I've kind of given up on some of the depth guys you mentioned, but it would be nice if somebody could plug in there. So Hal Vaitai is one of the bigger question marks when it comes to dollars making sense here for the Lions, but he did have a nice bounce back here when they kicked him inside, no doubt about it. So, Logan, we got so many guys to get into, man. We'll have to kind of move through these, but I still want to focus a little bit on the starters. So I've talked about 3 out of the 5. Let's talk about Jonah Jackson next, the left guard, drafted in the 3rd round. He's got a cap hit of around 1.3 this year. He's been a really solid player. He's had a little bit of ups and downs, but was able to kind of get that alternate Pro Bowl type bid. He seems to be coming in his own. I love his mentality, and you got to love that rookie 3rd-year contract that he's still on. So any issues with him moving forward or re-upping him for decent money? Where you at with Jonah Jackson?
Yeah, I think he's a solid young player and definitely been on that rookie contract, a 3rd-round contract that's just over $1 million a year. And you can't complain, especially for a guy being a Pro Bowler about only making $1 million a year. I'm not going to lie, I was a little surprised he made a Pro Bowl. I didn't think he was great last year, but that's kind of what the Pro Bowl is sometimes. I think he's a good, solid left guard, but also if he tries to, really cash in, I don't know if I'd be willing just yet to do that. And he still has this year and next year on his contract, so it's not like the Lions have to make that decision. But I think they do need to be careful because they're going to have to pay Sewell. They're already paying Ragnow, Taylor Decker. At the end of next year when maybe Jonah Jackson will be looking for an extension. Taylor Decker's getting up there in age and would only have a couple years left on the contract. But again, going back to only spending so much money on the offensive line, it'd be interesting to know what Jonah Jackson will be looking for in terms of his salary and what he wants to get. And anytime you have a Pro Bowl on your sheet and on your resume, I think it increases the price, but I don't think the Lions should get carried away and feel like they necessarily have to pay him. Because again, I think he was a lot like Vaitai last year, where they're kind of on the same wavelength of where their play was at. I think they were both good, not necessarily great, and they were fortunate enough to be surrounded by a lot of really good players. Well, I guess with Ragnow, he missed most of the season, and Taylor Decker missed a good portion of the season too. So maybe Jonah Jackson didn't have that luxury as much, but he's a guy. Anytime you draft a player, you want to keep him around. So that's my hope. I'm just hoping, that Pro Bowl doesn't go to his head where he thinks he deserves elite money or anything like that.
Yeah, I think somewhere on that resume after Pro Bowl, it must say in parentheses like 10th alternate, just so he's aware that that's what occurred to get there. But he's very solid, definitely keeping him for those 2 years. The Lions this is the reason I think they're a very sneaky team, because they've been bad the last 4 or 5, however many years in a row. So they've got these high-end picks that they've done pretty well at, if you want to be honest. So they've got all these guys on these rookie deals. I mean, Jonah Jackson makes 0.5% of the overall salary cap based on what he's making, the same as Logan Stenberg, if you can believe that, for what he's getting production-wise. So I think that, they are going to have to make those tough decisions here in a couple years. But for the time being, man, just roll these guys out there, let them make plays, and we'll go from there. So let's get to the big dog. Let's get to Frank Ragnow in the middle there. Frank got re-upped, before last year. Unfortunately, he missed the year, as you noted, with that foot injury, and we didn't get to see what it would look like with him and the other guys out there. He's a dominant player, really smart player. You look at this contract, he got a 4-year, $54 million deal. Heading into last season. When that kind of kicks in this year, it brings his cap hit from before where it was like $4 million to now it doubles, basically gets you in that 7.5, 8 million range. And then next year it goes up to 16.5. So it definitely jumps up quite a bit heading to next year. But this guy's so dang solid. I can't see him ever being a guy that they really want to move on from. But I'm looking at these numbers. I mean, a potential out before 2025, and that's where the cap hit goes again. It's in that 15 range for those years. I mean, that's a lot to pay a center when you're talking about $15 million cap hit. Do you feel it's worth it? Do you think that we're going to look at those numbers in a couple years and be like, man, $15 million for Frank is a lot? Or are we just going to be like, wow, this guy's such a dominant player in the middle that we're happy with it?
So I think with a player like Ragnow, who is as dominant as he is, and the Lions don't have many of those like elite players at any one position, and Ragnow is elite, and you have to keep those players around. And I think he does make a big difference, and the center is a bit of an unheralded position, but it's a very important position. And so to me, I'm fine with paying Ragnow what he's projected to get paid every year, and with the salary cap increasing, it should get a little lighter, and I think there'll be other centers who make more than him. But the Lions just need dominant players regardless of position, and that's what Ragnow is. So I'm happy to have him around long term. If he is consistent with his play and he continues doing what he's able to do when he's on the field and healthy, I have no issue paying him what he's being paid, because he honestly deserves it. He's one of the best centers in the league. And yeah, it's not a sexy position, like I said, but it is an important position. You're the quarterback of the offensive line, and I think he deserves what he's getting paid.
Love the player. The more I look at this contract, it gets kind of dicey 2-3+ years from now, but I'm not going to worry about that. I just want to see a healthy Frank in the middle with those other dogs up front pushing people around. That's my one thing about Frank Ragnow, is I like to see him. I know there's a couple YouTube clips and stuff of him burying people, but I'd like to see that consistent push instead of just the technical side and him really being nasty up front. But obviously love the player. He's regarded as kind of the top center, top 2 or 3 in the game, which is great. So let's just look at some of the backups. I mean, I'm looking at Logan Stenberg. Like I said, he makes similar money to Jonah. He's not done a damn thing since he took him in the 4th round. He can't even, can't even get suited up on game day. They've got a guy named Kevin Jarvis, who I'm unaware of. They've got Evan Brown. They re-upped him, which I like what Evan Brown did. He really showed that he'd come in and just be a nasty football player, play guard or center, no nonsense type of guy. I mean, the guy's bumped up now to over $2 million a year. Nice little raise, I think, for him and show for his production. For some reason, Ryan McCollum is still on the roster. We saw him get worked every time he was in the game. Matt Nelson, who they seem to love, who's like a former defensive lineman that they keep putting out there in a pinch, and just like, I don't know that he's as great as they think he is. The one and only Dan Skipper is still on the roster, which there's a lot of good Dan Skipper jokes out there. They got Eze, I don't know how you say it, but this is the undrafted kid with crazy length. I mean, the guy could tie his shoes without bending over. I think he's got some upside if he can find his way in training camp. And the kid out of Ferris State is there as well as kind of those are your tackles, your overall offensive lineman depth. I hit them rapid fire, Logan. Pick out a couple if you want to talk about them, or just or do any of those guys really make an impact?
Yeah, I mean, none of these guys are getting paid much money. I think Evan Brown is probably getting paid the most out of any of them, and he deservedly played into the contract he was given, and that's a solid depth, especially at center, to have him around. So I don't, again, just getting a couple million a year, like that's fine. And then Logan Stenberg, he's got to prove himself this year, because he hasn't done much of anything since coming into the league. Hopefully he's a guy that can turn it around. But Tommy, again, there's plenty of guys like Tommy Kramer who could probably provide you just as much as Logan Stenberg is doing at a cheaper cost. So it just depends on. With these guys, it's just keeping the best player, whoever plays the best through training camp and through the preseason. Just keep them on the roster. None of them cost that much. These are your depth type of pieces that you need, and you need to kind of find the diamonds in the rough and guys that can fill in a pinch. But Since some of them are making a whole lot of money, it's not like if you were to release one of them, you're going to have all this extra salary cap or anything like that. So, and looking in terms of just straight salary cap, yeah, none of these guys really move the needle all that much. They can stay or they can go, and it'll be fine. These guys, a few of them will probably end up on the practice squad, which will be great. Just try to develop them and see what you have.
Yeah, as far as the money goes, you're right on all that. I think when we're talking about on the field, like I think, Evan Brown's your swing interior player. You kind of hope that Stenberg can at least put a jersey on and get reps in practice, be available if needed, hopefully not needed. I'd probably put Easy E, which is probably not how you pronounce it, but that's how I'm going to say it from now on the show. He'd be in my practice squad, development type player. And then the Lions are going to keep Nelson or somebody up on game day just because they need that other tackle where I'm much more like Penne can flip over if needed. Hal you said he could bump out. I'd rather not have him bump out the tackle, but I usually think you just need that swing interior player that can play 3 spots to kind of get you by on most game days, but most teams keep that extra tackle as well. So they have a really strong front. They have a very expensive offensive line, but this is the year it really needs to pay off. I don't want to hear about, somebody having some fluke injury falling down the stairs or twisting their ankle at the beach right before and they're out half the season. We need to see that unit together, earning that dough and pushing people around both in the run and the pass game, no doubt about it. Logan, we only got about 20 defensive linemen to talk about. Do you think we can get those done in about 10 minutes here with me and you talking ball here on the show?
Probably not, but I mean, for the most part, there's only a few contracts that would probably incite any controversy on stay or go. So, yeah, I think we should be able to knock it out.
We'll do our best. Always fun to have you on, man. And definitely go check out what you're up to at Sports Illustrated All Lions. That's Logan Lamorandier at L Lamorandier on Twitter. So let's just start out with the man, the new cat, the rookie, the guy that's getting all the buzz, Aiden Hutchinson. Like, I'm sure you know this off the top of your head, but do you know where Hutch's cap hit is at for being the number 2 pick overall?
No, definitely not exact, and I know it always increases as it goes. So I want to say, I'm trying to do the math in my head here. What is it, around $8 million? I want to say maybe for year one.
I was looking for my Jeopardy music while you're trying to compute this in your head. So Hutchinson is going to be like, right around that 7 mark, kind of as a cap hit. Right. But, I mean, this kid's getting so much buzz that you're telling me you could get a work hard defensive end that's as young and as big and as physical. They're saying he's got crazy speed and burst too. So I absolutely love that number. I still can't believe, like, sometimes I have to sit here and really think, man, we have Hutch and J-Mo on this football team, like in the top 12. Those were our 2 selections. So you still have to love the rookie contracts. I think he's going to outperform it both on and off the field. What his teammates already seem to love him. So you get a defensive end that gives you production and leadership and the things Hutch gives you for $7 million on average. I think that's going to be really fun. Obviously, that's going to climb up towards the end of the deal, but basically a rookie deal is pretty flat for those first, 3 to 4 seasons. So, lock him in, see him in the jersey finally, eventually rushing the passer. I can't wait to see it. So where are you at with Charles Harris? He got re-upped, $3 million, kind of is his cap hit, has a low number. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice here. Has kind of a low number. But he did get a nice overall contract. Are you on board with Harris having another good year like he did last year with his increased talent?
Yeah, with Romeo coming back and assuming that we were going to draft a defensive end, I kind of didn't think that Charles Harris would be back. I thought he would get actually around the contract he did get from the Lions, but I figured the Lions, having some guys on the roster and assuming that they were going to be able to draft a defensive end at the top of the draft like they did, I didn't know if Harris was really a necessity to spend money on, but the cap hit this year is light. I know it goes up next year to around $8 million, and
quite a big jump up.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, it's a
it
big
is.
jump,
It's a
but it's
good
only
jump.
2 years 13 for a guy that I feel like this was a pay to play type contract where it's like, hey, you showed up, you have a great mentality, you were productive. We're not going to let those guys walk. We're going to reward a couple of our guys, which they did with him, Khalif Raymond, a couple others. I mean, I heard all the Lions players saying they think Khalif Raymond's the fastest guy on the team. So, some of these guys I think are great locker room guys that they decided to pay. I don't mind this deal at all. Former first round pick. Definitely roll him out there this year and go hunt quarterbacks and see if he's worth that $8 million type cap hit next year. That's where I'm at with it.
And I honestly, if he plays like he did last year, I think $8 million even next year. His cap hit's only $3 million this year.
Yeah.
If he plays like he did last year, even in a reserve role where it's just cycling in and out, I think that's more than worth it. And if he does that again this year, like he played last year, then I'm fine with paying him $8 million next year. It's just defensive end is typically an expensive position, and if you can kind of get a player of his caliber, at least the player again that we saw last year at the price point where they're paying him, I have no issues. But I do get a little concerned every once in a while about those 1 year wonders and how they're going to pan out the rest of their career after they get paid.
I'm with you, but again, I always have to coach you up here on the show that it's about more than what you see just down to down. It's about what they have inside, off the field. I think Charles has a real heartbeat now. He's found his spot, and he's a good college player as well. So there is an out. If he was to fall off the cliff, Brad Holmes put in an out to get out after this year, and he put in a sneaky kind of voidish type year in 2024 where you pay a couple million, but that just helps out the deal on the front end. So I love it. Logan, let me bundle some guys here. We'll keep us rolling. I got my guy Josh Pascal taken in the upper mid-second round. Makes around $1.4 million on a cap hit. They brought in John Kaminsky at $965K. That's probably kind of that vet minimum type thing. A lot of hype about Jayshon Cornell, the guy out of that school that was vanquished.
Ohio State is vanquished.
And that school that absolutely,
Hey, listen, Ohio State sucks.
Yeah, that guy that we took like in the later rounds that hasn't done a damn thing, but he's getting a lot of hype. We'll see if Jayshon Cornell can do anything or if he makes the roster. He's coming in under $1 million. Eric Banks, those are kind of your DNs, your rush type players. Obviously, they kind of bundled up Romeo in the linebackers, so I talked about him already. Any of those guys you want to spend a minute or so on? Well, I'm going to tee you up. I want to know your quick thoughts on Josh Pascal. A lot of people seem down on him because he didn't, I wasn't out there in mini camps, or he's not like blowing people away yet, I guess. But I'm still super high on this player from a mentality perspective, his contract, and what I think he's going to really bring to this team. I think he's going to absolutely flash if he's healthy and ready to go. And just get ready for it, Kool-Aid drinkers.
So with Pascal, I in terms of a straight defensive end, typically you pay those defensive ends to rush the passer, and I don't think he is that elite pass rusher off the edge, but given his first step quickness and just his run defense, I think if you move him inside and allow him to play to his strengths, I think he can be a really nice player. And I don't want to make any comparisons, but when you watch his highlights against the run, it does give you like some Aaron Donald college vibes where he's just blowing everybody up. He's so quick in the backfield. And Aaron Donald is a really special player, but I really hadn't seen that type of production against the run. And I feel like in a long time, coming from a defensive end, kind of 5-tech, inside type of guy that Pascal is. So I'm looking forward to what he can bring to the table. And again, I think you should temper your expectations of him rushing the passer off the edge. So I don't necessarily think he has like that elite bend or anything, but just with his power, if he can gain some weight too, I think he can really do some damage on the inside. So that's kind of where I'm projecting him right now, or where I envision him being best suited, is more on the inside and maybe being like a base defensive end on rundowns. But given the other pass rushers that the Lions have on the edge, I don't know how much Pascal, especially this year, will be on the edge in passing situations when they have so many other options at the position.
Well, I thought you would go there, but I want to just volley it back for a second because I know Logan Lamorandier loves the athletes. He loves guys with quick twitch. He loves guys that can run around the corner and kill quarterbacks. He loves bendy players, which I'm all for all that as well. But you want to know why I love Josh Pascal so much, and you brought it up. Because this dude is a beast. This guy is going to be so fun to watch on Sundays. I don't need a 230, 40-pound player that gets pushed around all the play. You know what I need? A big defensive end that can blow you up when you move him inside. He can push you around on the outside. And he's relentless, Logan. This guy's going to be just getting out after it with effort. He's going to be blowing up running backs. He's going to be getting TFLs. Like, I think when this guy comes into his own, he's just going to be so dang fun to watch. All the things that we hoped for some of these other interior type players that we talked about in the past. So I just can't wait to see him. I think people are sleeping on him. I can agree that it might take him a bit longer depending on his usage, but if there's nothing wrong with his foot or any of his other body parts, I think this guy is going to be a fan favorite as well, and a guy that when he's out there, you're going to feel him, no question, no matter where he's at, and he's going to be productive. The numbers are going to say it when it's all said and done. So enough about that. I could hype him up all day. We got to get DTs in here, kind of those interior type players before we get up out of here. Dollars make sense. Again, we're talking about contracts. So I want to throw this guy to you. Michael Brockers, the big 30-year-old on the team, makes $8.9 million on a cap hit. He makes bigger numbers after that. This is a guy that everybody feels like he's here for one more year. He seems like a great leader. He says all the right things. But, if some of their young cats ball out, I could see this being a guy that, man, we love you, but we got to keep it rolling and can move on from him. And I don't think he'd care nonetheless. He'd go to a contender or he'd go right off into the sunset and wouldn't worry one bit about it, and would still rep Detroit. So just take a couple minutes on Brockers, where you're at with him. It's a big number. Do you keeping him around because you love him, or is it time to move on from a guy like this?
Well, I'm keeping him around, but that's just because his dead cap is $8 million.
Yes.
And he's getting paid almost $9 million, or his cap hit is almost $9 million this year. So you're not saving hardly anything if you were to cut him. And I don't think he played well last year. I think he's well past his prime. He's probably on the decline. But next year he is still under contract, but I think you have to cut him because he's at almost $12 million next year. And his dead cap will only be almost $2 million. So you can save almost $10 million by releasing him. And by that point, you hope the young guys like Levi can step up. I think Ali McNeil is well on his way, and maybe even Josh Pascal if he's in that mix as well, and a couple other additions. But I thought he restructured his contract, I want to say, too. I can't remember if he did or not, but I thought he had an easier out after the second year. But I get it. He's a veteran presence, and the Lions need some sort of veteran presence on the team because they have next to none. They're one of the youngest teams in the league. And I think Brockers is the only player on their roster who's over 30 years old. So it's a really young team.
Yep.
And they just need depth. I think Brockers will be a starter this year, but I think, Levi and Aleem are the future at the position. So Brockers is probably just a bridge defensive tackle this year, and he has a contract you really can't get out from under. So he's going to be sticking around.
Agree with all that. I'm looking at his numbers here. You're totally right. You don't really save much if you're to move on from him. I think you need to see a guy like this in year two with the young cats, even if I think his role could be a little bit more diminished. But if he's just rooting on the young guys and teaching them how to be pros still, there is a potential out after this season where you have not even $2 million in dead cap. You don't have to pay that, almost $12 million cap hit moving on into 2023. I think that just makes so much sense for everybody included. give him a gold watch after this season and thank him for all his efforts, and everybody will be happy type of thing. So, Levi Onwuzurike, a.k.a. Big Denim. He makes, $1.8 million on a cap hit. He's under that rookie deal. He was taken high in the second round, so he's got some proving to do. But, Michael Brockers makes up 4% of your cap. Big Denim makes 0.8. A lot of good contracts, a lot of low contracts here for Brad Holmes and company. You have a Lee McNeil plump in the middle. I mean, he's making 1.1 cap hit. Lots of buzz about him being dominant, being the strongest player on the team, being a stud, as Dan Campbell calls him. Somehow Bruce Hector is still hanging around, big old nose tackle type player. We all know that John Pennicini retired. And you got this guy, Demarius Taylor. Every time I see a video from the Detroit Lions, you got this guy with a big old beard that's getting a lot of pub. He's always in the camera. He's always kind of making plays. So this Taylor kid might be somebody that could be surprising. He doesn't make any money, $710K. Maybe he's a hustle player, kind of that rotational, no-name guy in the middle of the defense that they end up keeping around and for depth. Any thoughts on the young cats or a guy like Taylor?
Yeah, they're all rookie contracts, so they're all, the potential, even though Levi Onwuzurike didn't necessarily live up to that, but second round potential last year, hopefully he's healthy this year and got a bit stronger and can do more of what he did in college, and that's just be disruptive, and I think the scheme will help him. So it's not like you're going to be moving on from him at any point soon. I'm fine with his contract. But yeah, Demetrius Taylor, he's actually one guy I'm really excited to see because he's a bit undersized, but he's more of the gap shooter type and can get into the backfield. And the Lions don't have really many of those guys. At least you didn't see it last year, maybe with this new scheme, with this attacking defensive front that they have. I think that kind of fits Demetrius Taylor's strong suits. And you hope that those will get shown in preseason. He is like fringe roster type of player, but he's a guy who I kind of have hope for that he can really develop because he has some nice traits to him. And at the very least, at least make the practice squad and maybe get called up here and there throughout the season and kind of see what he has because he's an undrafted free agent, so he's cheap. It'd be really nice to have an undrafted free agent. And we had a couple of them last year, but have maybe a couple more this year that can really step up. And when their name is called, they make plays.
Absolutely. Well, there it is, everybody. Dollars make sense. Offensive line, defensive line. I think Brad Holmes has put emphasis on it. I think the Lions have been building at least the offensive line for a few years now. D-line, he's really put a lot of resources in. I love a lot of these contracts. We talked about a few that are debatable as we move forward, but 2022, man, it's all systems go with these guys. There's really no big cut candidates, nobody we're moving on from financially. And Logan, man, we did it. And when I say we did it, it's not that the show's over, which it is actually, but we win a good 35 again, which is supposed to be your call-in segment. You just jump in, jump out. I think I blinked and we talked football for over a half hour here for the people. So that's usually what happens, man. But I did pub you up 2-3 times on all the stuff you got going on. I know that you're chasing kids around, or at least, doing that grind. You got the job commitments. I pubbed your stuff on Sports Illustrated. It's just always so fun when you come on, man. But we might have to start making these shows into short segments because we just get going and there's no stopping.
Yeah, it's next to impossible to only talk for 20 minutes, especially when we only talk once a month.
Exactly, man. Well, I can't thank you enough like I normally do. I mean, is there anything else you want to throw out there, or do you want to just tell the Kool-Aid drinkers out there that literally a week from now, basically the Lions will be in training camp and we will have football from now until February. The Detroit Lions are one of the biggest hotnesses in the whole NFL in regards to hype. Players on both sides of the football. I'm sure you're just ready to get it going.
Oh yeah, no, it's so close, and it's exciting. It's I feel like once the draft passes, the draft is like my Christmas, and then it's just wait, and wait a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, that wait's over, buddy. So I can't wait for it. It'll be here before we know it. I know everyone is super hyped. I mean, numbers have never been bigger on the Koolaid Cast, as well as people are just really excited about this football team, me and you included, I think. So I can't thank you enough, man, for calling up the hotline and talking ball here this week on the Detroit Koolaid Cast.
Of course, man. Appreciate it.
Everybody, that's what we got for you this week. We'll catch you next week right here on the Detroit Koolaid Cast. Take care, everybody. We're out.
Pack the bag, start the plane. This game is over. It is over. What a comeback by the Lions. Drink it in, man.